Are you familiar with David Sedaris, the
Absolutely.
American humor writer? Another American humor writer, I should say. This is Your Brain on Shamrocks. A lot of the essays that you talk about deal with your family. You mentioned your mother, but it's not just your mother. You talk about a lot of your family members in here, and there's clearly, a lot of love. But on the way to expressing that love, there are a lot of funny stories and embarrassing moments. David Sedaris, as I said, another humor writer who writes about his family, said that it's at a certain point his family just stopped talking to him out of fear that every word they say was going to be published in his next book.
Yeah.
So how has your family's reaction been to
Much the same. I mean, I didn't really do a hatchet job or anything on them, but it's funny because they're great storytellers and they're funny and they just wouldn't even know it. But if sometimes you'll find my father, for instance, he'll be winding up and he'll be ready to tell this great story, and then he'll stop himself and see if I'm listening because he's like, oh, that's going to end up in the paper next week, so he'll stop himself. But I think overall, my family's a fairly private family, and I'm the first writer. Yeah, they used to be, exactly. But I'm the only writer in the whole group, so this is kind of unprecedented. We've never had a writer in the family before. So I think that at first when the stories came out and there were these very private, memories of our family that are now in a book form, I think these private people were like, whoa, what's that? But I think in time, when they went to the book signings and the book tours and whatnot, they eventually saw the reaction of the crowd and how they loved my mom. My mom was like the star of the show. Right. She's like the heroine of the book, so to speak. They would identify with their grandparents in the stories I told about mine. So I think my parents eventually saw the bigger picture of what this book was and what it wasn't. It wasn't a hatchet job, but it was just celebrating these stories because as a writer, I know you're a songwriter and you're a blogger as well. If you don't write this down for you and your kids, who is going to write that down? So I thought there was almost a responsibility to not only share these funny stories, but to celebrate them and then to have these folks live on through your words. When I do an essay about my grandmother and I read it at a book signing, now a whole table, a whole room full of people would know who my grandmother was now that they wouldn't have before, and I think as a writer that's a real thrill.
Yeah, it's the like the age-old motivation to immortalize.
Absolutely.
And again, and I think like I said, that's even where it's not directly expressed, and that's the love that comes through. It's just the story about your grandmother, which our listeners actually heard a couple of weeks ago on the last show. It's a terrific one. It's really just one of the in a book of essays that really sparkle. That's one that even stands out. Very touching. Very. It really brings your grandmother to life, and like I said, it immortalizes her. For lack of a better
humbly
word.
speaking, I think that might have been one of my favorite things, or the best things I could ever write. So I really enjoy that one as well. And thanks for saying that.